Hello, everybody. Welcoming back in another new edition of the USFL podcast. We have so much exciting things to discuss for this edition. Zach Keilman here, hosting for this episode, alongside of my good buddy, my good co-host, my good pal of mine from XFL, USFL Newsroom, the ref, Stefan Raychuk here. Stefan, thanks for, of course, another great time that we're going to be having. So much to discuss. We got, of course, our tidbits as usual to get out of the way, but how's your week? With this league right now. Wow.
Beyond the league, it's been a huge week, right? We had the big announcement in Birmingham. We had the final two head coaches. And you probably are aware we had a little bit of an anniversary, 4 years of Newsroom. And I'm just going to reiterate, I want to thank everybody for supporting the site over the last 4 years. We're going into our 5th year. It's going to be a half a decade next year. We couldn't do it without you. And I'll tell you this, Zach. We're having we're having a ridiculous year already. We're less than a month in, and we're already over 30% of the traffic that we had last year. That's amazing to me. We have more traffic in January this year so far than we did our first 2 years collectively, 2018 and 2019.
1 month. We're not even out into February yet.
It's the year of the Newsroom. I'm glad everybody's supporting. That's why I'm wearing the XFL Newsroom hat today instead of the ref hat. But sign everybody up. I hope you're having a good time. I hope everybody at home's having a good time. Episode number 4. Episode number 4, 4 years of Newsroom. Things are lining up. It feels like it's been made for us. It feels like every week the show gets bigger. And boy, oh boy, do we have a lot to talk about this week.
Cosmically getting in order, just like how the league itself is getting in order as well. And you just talked about it, coaching announcements, just the fact that we finally are going to be getting to discuss in full an official Birmingham announcement about that being the hub city, and a little extra, I would say, incentive was added on to that we'll touch on with that too. Let's get some of the orderly things out of the way for the show. First off, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do. We are growing quite a bit, and actually, we have a giveaway that we got to announce here because of that growth. So thank you guys. We passed 250 subs. We're currently, as of this recording, upwards 267, which I have been amazed at how quickly you guys have joined in on this channel and given us feedback. So thank you for that. Please give us a sub and like this video or those that you watch too. It helps us. Ring the bell too. It does build morale. Yes, I'm getting it down. I'm getting it down. See, he beats it into me to make sure that I'm saying it anymore. Ring the bell. It builds morale for yourself. Trust me, you're gonna feel good about it. And follow us on our socials too. USFL Podcast, Facebook, Instagram, and of course Twitter. The Twitter's grown. We're over 500 followers now on that. Things are up and up. It's zooming to the moon, as I've been saying to Stefan here.
It's feeling good. 2022 is a good year. 2020 started great, ended horribly. 2021, a little bit of back and forth, but I'm telling you, 2022, it just feels right.
It does. It does. All right, guys. As I just said, 250 subs we did pass. We promised you we'd do a giveaway for another T-shirt or hat, and I'm happy about who we're giving this to, because I love interacting with this individual online and with my other shows, and he always has great insight with his background in minor league sports. And David Kislinski, if you are watching this, which I imagine you are because you do comment on many of our videos, David, you have just won yourself a T-shirt or hat. All you got to do is DM us on Twitter. Mm-hmm. Go to Twitter. You already follow us on Twitter. I know you do. Go and DM us or me or Stefan, and we will give you a T-shirt or hat of your choice and mail that to you. So get back to us. I know you're watching this. If you're not, I'm going to remind you myself. Dude, this guy is one of the most supportive guys for the alt football scene and loves interacting with people. Seriously, thanks for tuning in, and congrats on yourself for your gift. Now let's get into the meat potatoes of this whole thing. What we're talking about as we're recording, the big deal. Everyone's been ragging on the league and waiting. Where are the two coaches? Where are the Breakers and the Panthers coaches? When is this thing going to get announced? Can we get this going? We get the Birmingham confirmation. Everyone thinks that maybe we're going to have to wait till February, which, as I've said on this show, would be disappointing. But all of a sudden, 15 minutes before the herd, we're talking even tighter of a cycle than the last two. 15 minutes, that beautiful message, the beautiful tweet pops up. Coaching announcement coming starting at noon in the Herd. And as much as you don't care for the Herd, we had a great meme today about, just you get your dose.
I gotta say, I've never been forced to watch the Herd, but at the same time, prior to this, I had just never watched the Herd.
Right.
It's not that bad. I don't get why everybody hates it that much. I'm sure maybe my opinion will change. It seems that he has a little bit of a thing going on with Baker Mayfield. That's what Mayfield, I'm sorry. I assume there's probably more to it than I wish to know, but that's what I gather from Colin Cowherd. Every time we tune in, he's talking about Baker at some point. I thought he loved him until today, and then he doesn't love him.
It's kind of a running joke, actually. That's what I find hilarious. Like, because I'm at work myself for this, and soon enough, we follow in message boards all through the day, and sure enough, one of our buddies in there goes, "Oh God, Baker! Why did it have to be Baker?" But 15 minutes before, they say we're doing this, and they didn't even wait the whole 3 hours. Much like the last two, they got about a little halfway-ish through the show, and then said, "All right, let's do it. Final two dropping right now," and they dropped the first one. Larry Fedora, who has backgrounds head coaching Southern Miss, North Carolina, mostly a college coach. And a lot of people went, that's pretty solid. His resume's got it. It definitely backs it up. It's going with the same vibe a lot of the coaches that have been selected so far have been, either that high profile or high tenured college coaching vibe, or one that's been kind of back and forth. And then they slammed us with the big one. The one that was, we kind of got a hint last week. We didn't think it was going to happen. We thought it was some different role. We even speculated in the speculation zone about it. Jeff Fisher is going to coach for the Michigan Panthers. And if you didn't think it blew up just within our own circles, the sports world went, what?
Right.
Excuse me? This man is going where? If the USFL wasn't in people's radars now, Jeff Fisher going to the Panthers instantly flip the switch.
Well, like we were talking about earlier before the show, and our friend Arden USFL over on Twitter pointed out, the Panthers have now surpassed the Pittsburgh Maulers on Twitter as the most followed USFL franchise within a day, like less than a day. And I can't remember what the total number was, what they came back from, but I mean, they now lead. And I mean, we've talked about this in the past. It makes sense. Me, again, being a Lions fan, those people in Michigan, they want a team that's going to win football. We don't know if they're going to win, but they still are the last professional. I know there's arena teams that have won, but we're talking professional, traditional football team to win a championship in the state of Michigan. And on top of that, they're getting a legitimate coach. And sure, slap my knee. We've all seen the comment. We've all seen the joke of, oh, they're going 5-5. Oh, they're going 4-6. I'll tell you this, and maybe, you know what? This is a hot take. Ref's hot take.
Okay.
There's not any great coach that is perfect all the time. Bill Belichick is a perfect example. Yes, he won a bunch of Super Bowls with Tom Brady. Trust me, Bill Belichick has had his years where he wasn't that great of a coach. For instance, he was an assistant on the Lions, for crying out loud. Tomlin, went to the Super Bowl, won with the Steelers, has also had horrible seasons. The Lions always have horrible seasons, but Jim Caldwell, great seasons and mediocre seasons. Mm-hmm. When I look at a guy like Jeff Fisher, the equation isn't there that it's instantly he's going to be a bad coach or a laughable coach or this and that. It's completely different. It's apples and oranges. And to judge somebody based on a couple seasons, I think is silly, right? This is really going to come down to who these guys are going to pick. Like, who are the players that are going to be on their team? Are they able to manage a small squad that can be competitive for 10 weeks and hopefully an extra 2 if they make the playoffs? So, Fisher, to me, great pick. Now, Fedora, I do want to point out, when I think of a Larry Fedora, I don't think of a visor. But I will say, this dude is jacked. There's one guy I wouldn't want to start a fight with, is Larry Fedora. When I
saw the pictures, I saw the photos. Jesus Christ.
I hear the name Larry Fedora. You know what I think? I think of a dude that has like his wall covered with like replica anime swords wearing a fedora, tipping milady. But no, this dude, I mean, the refs better watch out. They better give him the right calls. I mean, this dude might run out on the field and take care of business himself. That's all I'm saying.
Now, those photos, I that really got me a little bit stunned there. I did find funny too with the comments from some people. They're going, man, he's got to feel bad being overshadowed with Jeff Fisher just getting all of a sudden announced like that. But I mean, what do you guys say? I can go over Jeff Fisher's resume. Former NFL player. He's been through the ringer in multiple programs. You know, he's guided the Titans to a Super Bowl and was within a yard and a half at one point of possibly going to overtime in that contest. I mean, 3 division titles, 2 different teams head coaching in the NFL, you know, constant experience, you know, credit. Most people now remember him lately for 7-9 in St. Louis and LA, and for kind of bowing out at the end of his tenure and end of his run. Funny enough, in his in kind of his write-up for the press release, the media advisory for these coaches, he elaborated saying, it's like, you know what, I was missing it. I've been following the football. He's mentioned he's been fishing a lot since then. And he referenced that he wanted a passion to get back into the game. And sure enough, Fox came knocking is how it's being relayed. So here he is. You know, Fedora is a little different. He's coming from Baylor as he was their offensive coordinator just this year. That team won the Big 12 championship, for those that aren't aware or haven't been following college football as closely, if you haven't yet. So a little bit different backgrounds and views, although Fisher's name instantly is recognizable. And we were wondering, you know, not like some of us and between us too, is there going to be a bigger fish? You know, because honestly, if you want to go big fish by name, my argument is Todd Haley or Mike Riley were those guys right now. And even to some people, it's like, you know, Todd Haley's reputation to some people is mixed. You know, Mike Riley's is more favorable, but it's not like big, successful, you know, someone that you're swaying from the NFL. He was in the NFL, but it's not saying that he was like a Jeff Fisher NFL figure. Fisher carries a different demeanor. And even online, you know, he kind of is a meme at times online for the NFL. So everybody was getting in on this. They have the guys from Pardon My Take. We're talking Bleacher Report. Any outlet that ever dealt or has talked Jeff Fisher in their life reported this today. Right. So big fish.
I mean, it's a good name. It's a big name to have, and I mean that's important when you're doing these types of things. I mean, like you mentioned, Mike Riley. Looking at the other coaches, I would agree. Probably Mike Riley, Todd Haley. Mike Riley's perfect. With the spring football experience. But I mean, again, looking back at what are your top teams? They already knew Michigan. I think you brought this up to me in chat earlier, so I'm going to steal this from you. But
sure.
I agree that the Michigan Panthers have the opportunity to be what the St. Louis Battlehawks were.
Yes, that is
in the USFL. So that credit to Zach on that. I'm just saying it, but I 100% agree here, and I think giving them probably the biggest name coach out of the bunch is only going to help that franchise, right? So all in all, I mean, great coaches, great hires. When we look at it from beginning to end, I will say I'm a little surprised. So we did only get one coach from the Spring League with Andrus.
Yep.
I thought we might see a Gilbride or one of those other guys that came over from the XFL come over. But at the end of the day, Fox is going a different direction. But I can't be mad at it because everybody that they picked is good. I like it.
I'm not mad. I mean, there are ones where, you know, I agree with some folks in the community where it's like, yeah, you know, there are some ones you're going to see how they pan out, either returning back like Todd Haley or even like a Kevin Sumlin who's coming over after a terrible tenure with, for example, Arizona and kind of hitting the reset in Houston Houston by name. Eventually, that's the idea. You know, we understand they're eventually going to move out of Birmingham. Nonetheless, though, you know, if I had a second thought, I've said this too, you have said this too, Mega Bowl winner Hal Mummy, I wanted him so badly to have a spot. And I know that the idea right now, it sounds like is Fox wants their own thing. They don't want the TSL connected to it, even though Brian Woods is in it. And Bart Andrus really is the only exception. But the reason why I see that as the only exception, Andrus was with the TSL since its inception in 2018. He almost was deserving of a spot just from the work he put in with helping that organization and being an influence and helping players with that. I mean, he also coached the Generals, which was a name they're going to bring over anyway. It just, that one had the dots because of the longevity. I just wish how Mummy had a chance because of the fact, like, he was successful. It shouldn't be about the TSL. If it was that, then that's a shame.
But I hope it wasn't.
It's an air raid offense like that. You're talking explosive offenses. I mean, that would have been the gate. That's the only regret. If we could even expand it to 10, like if I had my soapbox, I'd be begging and pleading to Eric Shanks or anyone at Fox. Like, I beg you, give me at least Hal Mummy and 2 more teams. This man will make your production look that much better because it's explosive play that he brings. That's the only one.
Dude knows how to coach fun football. Straight up. You know, one thing I will say that's interesting about all of this, I don't know if you remember way back, let's take a trip into the time machine to 2019, maybe early 2020 when the XFL was announcing their coaches. There was a rumor that Jeff Fisher was coming to coach for the Tampa Bay Vipers.
That's right. And
if I recall correctly, I'm fairly certain the two had discussions, and it was one of those things where they didn't come up with a deal, and then shortly after it was Mark Trestman that came out and was announced coach. But even at the time, Fisher was kind of teasing the crowd. I don't know if you recall, he posted his flight itinerary where he's flying to Tampa Bay the day of the announcement, and that really got people jived up, and it wasn't him at all. It wasn't him. He said no and whatever. But it is interesting. He said no to the XFL, but he did say yes to the USFL.
Right. Well, I think too that plays in. If again, I'm going to go off as media advisor. He's had some time away. This would be going on year 6 of his last stint with an actual professional program. Because that in 2016 he was relieved of his duties with the Rams, and he's kind of been either advisory roles or in flux for that time. So I think I think he just had enough time to where that's where you're saying I missed the game. And 3 years removed, like, okay, maybe you start thinking about it, but maybe you enjoy some things. 6, and if you really still have that urge at that point, and it looks like that's what it was, and maybe that's how it lined up for that case. We'll never. I don't think we'll ever fully know unless we get someone that was on the ground floor fully. But I will say, thank God, no Mark Trestman, because I was really sitting there worrying. I'm like, if Trestman's available and this man gets a job.
I would have got roasted online or a ping from the league saying, come on, dude. You can't be saying that. We just announced him as coach. So I'm very glad. And I mean, nothing against Mark Trestman. I'm just saying there's an unhealthy piece of this whole thing, at least an unhealthy appetite for tight ends that I can't comprehend. That
tight ends,
there's something
split time quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, good for him. But I will say the XFL is coming back next year. You can go play for the Miami Vipers or wherever they end up, because I will be amazed if the Vipers stay in Tampa Bay, especially with the Bandits now. But that's next month. XFL stuff's going to be dropping. Yeah. We'll probably hint on it on here, but I know other shows on our group, they'll be talking about that exclusively, and I'm pumped for that too. Just saying, like and for anyone that listens to this, we know we love seeing these leagues grow. We hope that we can coexist. But that eventually is going to come out. I'm excited for that at some point. But I'll save that talk for outside of here, because by next week we'll be in February, and who knows what the hell will happen at that point. We'll probably talk about it. There's nothing holding us to talk about. The title is one thing. We're our own people. We'll do what we want.
Fair enough. Something else that finally came out of Birmingham and the USFL out of this week, which I and you thought was going to be the only thing that maybe we were getting to that point where, like, well, if they didn't announce the herd on Wednesday night, I think we're not getting the coaches till February.
Right.
And, again, they surprised us. So I was really happy about that I didn't have to say I was disappointed that they couldn't get them all in the month.
I'll say this real quick before we deviate from that. I had so many bullet points and notes ready for this week's speculation zone on how I don't think it's a big deal that the coaches weren't announced in January.
You and I
didn't even have to do it.
You and I would have been a bit in the debate zone. Is that what we would have called it?
It would have been fun. I'm a little disappointed they announced them now just for that reason alone. I know I'm in my own little world on that one, but
Well, we don't have to get there. Like I said, they avoided the situation I would have been saddened by. But you know what else they did? They finally got that damn official announcement in for Birmingham as the hub. Remember, folks, we've heard hints and rumors and talk about this via several sources in Alabama as of October of last year. And even thanks to Roy Johnson of Alabama.com, this has been going on even earlier, and then it only leaked out as officially happening to a degree in October. By the way, you should read up that article of his. It's really its title is How the USFL Came to Birmingham and How It Almost Didn't. Recommend you do. Great columnist and journalist there from Roy Johnson. I appreciate his stuff. Check it out. Anyway,
we'll put a link in the description, by the way.
Yeah, we will do that for the video. I recommend you check it out. Point being, in that write-up, and as we had been hinted at in other write-ups before this, when they were dealing with setting up this hub, they had first off Protective Stadium, which was the main prize. That's what the Fox was looking at the most. The shiny gem in the Magic City that just got built for UAB and that they could capitalize on for being that new venue. Here's the thing that they had to add on, though. They had to get Legion Field, and that was kind of a key part of this, is you wanted to have Legion Field and Protective Stadium both in this package. Both of them, even though they're only a few miles apart, they're different areas of the city, different communities you have to get involved. And as they mentioned on this announcement that they made this past Tuesday, they wanted the whole city to be behind and supporting this. Legion Field is in a different neighborhood than where Protective is. Protective is in what is labeled as Uptown, from what I have been told by those that live down there. Completely different from where Legion's based, and there are different communities and demographics in there. So they got two different departments that they had to negotiate with as well on getting these deals done. They got them done, and they finally set up an official time, which was January 5th, that Tuesday. And first off, whole meeting, you don't want to talk about filled. They packed Protective. People seemed like they were excited for this. They got Skip Holtz in there for the official Birmingham Stallions head coach. He was able to make some points. Eric Shanks made some points. The mayor of Birmingham made some points along with other officials. And they also dropped another piece. The first game of the season, the first one on the schedule, and the only one on the schedule right now. I know people are hitting on that now too. They finally announced that you can buy tickets for that game. And you know what? General admission is $10.
And
$10.
Free if you're under 15.
Yes,
kids
if you're
under 15.
a kid that's under 15, free admission.
Which I got to say is crazy, right? I get free admission for kids, but even like 15 seems like a very high benchmark, right? Usually when I think free kids, like 8 and under, maybe 10 and under. 15 and under, I mean, talk about affordable. Now, there's a couple things, too. It hasn't been confirmed, but we have seen reports that they may only be charging for the Stallions games, and the rest might be no cost, free, whatever. That hasn't been confirmed, but, I mean, if that's the case, I mean, what a way to go to fill these stadiums. I mean,
sure,
that's a huge opportunity right there. I mean, $10. You can't even go. I mean, Wendy's. No joke. There's combo meals at Wendy's that cost more than $10.
Even with fees, what would you rather do? Go for a 3-ish hour football game in a city with decent climate during the spring, with solid talent, or do you want to buy a meal? That's kind of what they're implying with those ticket sales. And yeah, we don't know officially if that's all the teams doing that, because this first one's Birmingham. So, you could in theory put it that way. There's your speculation zone part we can throw in there for our quota. But for this first game, $10 general admission for it. The rest of the schedule is going to come out soon. They mentioned that too. And some of you may be thinking, well, wait a minute, $10. Like, how are you even making a profit? Let's keep something in focus. I want to stress this for those, and this has been something I think, I'm not coming off as divisive, but some people I think are missing the point. This has been stressed as a television product first. The most important aspect of the USFL is not the gate sales. It looks pretty. If you get people in the stadium, it looks pretty. TV, the TV revenue, the TV viewership, TV production, that is what they want to focus on. And that's why they did this route for the hub. It is a TV product first, and then everything else is gravy.
Yeah.
Once you get the TV right, you can then focus on going out to the stadiums like they've been talking about with this grandiose plan. But you got to get that right first. That's the plan. And what gets people in seats? Cheap entertainment. And it's summertime that you're running into this too.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I mean, I think they knocked it out of the park with the pricing. Again, this is only for the first game. But ultimately, I mean, when you look at, and what we're about to talk about next year is like the fact of at least filling up that first game is very important, because there's something that hasn't happened in 55 years going on here as well. We have,
no kidding.
I mean, is this not the craziest thing you've ever heard? A simulcast with Fox and NBC are going to be both airing the debut game. So it's going to be produced by Fox, same ads, same commentary, everything produced by Fox on both networks, prime time. Now, I will say it is interesting that it seems like Saturday we get one game for opening day. Now, I'm curious, do we get 3 games on Sunday, 2 games on Sunday, and maybe a Monday game to kick things off? I mean, I think these are the questions rather than the full schedule. And yes, I want to get that. I don't see that as a huge deal as far as like which teams are playing each other. But I am curious how they play that out, because, I mean, 3 games on one day, that might be a little tough, but it also might not as well. I mean, maybe we see a situation where one is at Protective and one is at Legion. But I mean, I'm again, real quick. So we mentioned 55 years. This is the first time since Super Bowl I that this has happened. So just to put that in perspective here, I mean, the USFL is in fine company already.
That to me was insane to hear. And that's just not heard of in a modern sports setting. You don't have that. There's media rights deals out the wazoo that are for different broadcasting entities and drawing their own crowds to their own channels. And I know that, NBC buying into this, we knew when they bought in that was like, okay, they're going to play games on NBC as well. So, they both have some stake, but they're also going to, we thought originally this was going to be like independently, they'll be doing their own stuff on the side.
Right.
You want to talk about efficiency, like they're breaking down, this is not just for this game, like 4 games moving forward. It's Fox production in terms of in-game.
Mm-hmm.
NBC handles pre, post, halftime, the stuff that's extra. So you want to talk about, incorporating things and cutting even further to better utilize the assets available between 2 broadcast companies, 2 of the biggest in the nation, if not for in some cases the world, for some of the places that they broadcast to elsewhere. I mean, that you don't hear about this. That's the thing that sticks out. It just doesn't happen anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, the other question that comes from some people is, well, does it dilute the product's viewer numbers? It's like, well, to be determined. Now, think about it. If you discard CW, which CW you could argue is a 5th, top network in the U.S., to me, I'm going to put it aside because it's for a demographic that's 18 to 34-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
So you have 4 networks that are supposed to be designed for the general audience, that like 18 to 65 range, if I'm being broadish, but also what they're trying to target.
Mm-hmm.
Fox and NBC cover half of that.
Right.
And that's over 440 affiliates nationwide that are going to have some sort of exposure to this game. So April 16th, that's Saturday night, if you're tuning in for TV, 2 of the 4 stations that are in your area, that are the main stuff, unless you go to cable,
mm-hmm.
they will have that game. So you might just be curious enough. The thing is, the large audiences are going to come week 1. It happens every week.
Mm-hmm.
But now you're getting like everybody coming in week 1. And it's not going to be like this the entire time, I imagine. I bet this is just a kickoff thing that you do the simulcast for. Maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe we'll see it for the championship. Yeah, I don't know if we will. I think having it for 1 game alone, even if it's the first game, that is exposure that's unheard of. And I mean, even when we're looking back 55 years ago, demographics were different as far as how many people watch TV, right? Yeah, maybe more people in their households watch TV because that was, it was either that or radio. There wasn't any internet. But ultimately, at the end of the day, more people are watching TV now. Right. There's just more, even though less people by percentage are watching TV, there's millions more people watching TV than they were 55 years ago. And I mean, we saw it with the Spring League, right? They did like zero advertising for the spring league. People stumbled upon it. I remember week 2, week 3, people on social media, wait, there's football on?
Yeah.
Imagine the amount of people that are going to learn there's a new football company. And then even on top of that, there's going to be a fraction of those that remember the old USFL or maybe have heard about it from a relative or something like that are going to say, wait, what? And I mean, the intrigue alone, I feel is going to suck a few people in. And I mean, I'm a little speechless on how crazy this is. It's like time and time again, you know, we see a lot of people poo-poo on the USFL online. They're a little shy. They keep things close to the vest. But every time they come out with some of these announcements, it's first the deal with NBC. That blew me away, right? Just getting a competitor to pay you money. Now seeing them both play this game at the simulcast at the same time, I mean, this really is Fox's game to lose here with the USFL. They're so set up for success that beyond another catastrophe like we saw in 2020, I mean, they are so set up for success. I feel like even if we had what happened in 2020 with the USFL, at least for 2022, the USFL is set up for success, right? You have the central hub, so you don't have to deal with flying players back and forth. You don't have to deal with last-minute hotels. You don't have to deal with any of that. You have, again, we've talked about this time and time again. What are the two main reasons that spring leagues fail? Broadcast and money. And my God, do they have that set up? And then it's like we're getting more and more icing on the top every week, right? And right. I mean, we still have a couple months to go. We're going to see the player selections, which we'll talk about a little bit later. We have the rule set that we're still kind of waiting on. I guarantee we are going to see some merch. Speaking of the event in Birmingham, it seems like we finally got confirmation on that USFL game ball. Oh, those look like prototypes or replicas. The design was the same.
Well, yeah, the ones in the promos. Remember, we talked about this in a previous show. Like, are these legitimate football? Like, is this their design? And sure enough, I know it's a replica, but they trouted out that exact same one that was in the promos. The stars on the end of the ball and everything for the press to look at in that event when they announced Birmingham. I mean, I don't know how much you can deviate late, but that's got to be the design that they are adding, and it kind of fits like any other football that's been non-traditional NFL. You know, it's the point for better, you know, looking at the catch better for a receiver. You know, it's got that little flare and it's got the USFL logo on the side. So like that was another small tidbit coming out of that announcement. You know, you get the football basically looks confirmed as well, too. A lot of stuff for this. It's just people, I think, I see it as people aren't used to this way they're doing the league is what it is. I think a lot of people are expecting with these spring leagues or other football leagues, you launch it, you make it a big grandiose display, you get it out to all these cities, you go hard on the local marketing, and you get people's butts in seats, and the TV, you prove your worth. Whereas this one, you know, it's a lot of stuff where it's like, well, wait a minute. What about the TV? Like I've seen people still now, and they're asking like, well, what's the TV? What's the situation? It's like they have the TV. That's the company, you know, that Fox has this. Or it's like, well, why aren't they in cities? It's like, I get that. You know, I'd want to root, like, I'm not even from Michigan, but I'll admit it, team section, I'm a Panthers guy. I picked that up, you know. But, you know, if I wanted to go locally, I can't do that. I get that. But, you know, it saves money not doing that.
Right.
It's weird. It sucks. But for year one, it's backwards. But not doing that, you bring back those costs to focus on things that matter more. Like we've been talking.
Honestly, I ain't even mad at it. You know, I mean, realistically, I live here in Houston. I can go to Texans games. I mean, for like dirt cheap now. You can go on StubHub before the game and get them for like a couple bucks. You know how many games I went to this season? None. I watched them on TV.
Big zero, the way you
right?
say it.
You know, so I mean, I don't think it's not. I mean, yeah, it's not perfect having them all in one city. But like I've said in the past, if having them play all in one city for the first year and maybe even a couple hubs for the second year ensures that they stay around, ensures that we see something we haven't seen since, I think, the last USFL, 2 champions in a spring football league.
Right.
Right.
Well, they had 3. I mean, they had
Right.
3 full seasons. Now, credit 85 was already at that time. They knew they were going to the fall and things were iffy, but like they still played a full third year with the intention of a fourth the next. So this, I mean, that's what we're hoping. Like Moose Johnson said it best early on. Get through year 1 and we can talk about the stuff moving forward. That reputation already gets better if you prove you can get a season done, even if it is backwards. That's the thing. Even if it's backwards as hell and you're still trying to understand why they took this route, if they're getting it ready, that's what it proves. Now I will put down before we move on to our final some of our final points here. We do know stuff that needs to be done. Like we do see that the schedule, as you mentioned, okay, it's going to come out. We know the barriers. April 16th to July 3rd. The biggest thing is what's the in between. What about the special Monday, Friday broadcast that they've talked about? How are the day structures set up? I know that some people have asked about, what's the rest of that first weekend look like? They only did 1 game. And as I can tell, there's a lot of guys in our community that they're like $10 a ticket. Sign me up. I'm going down. We're even signed up. I bought your ticket this week.
Yeah. Sign us up.
We're going down no matter what.
Speaking of which, for everybody that's listening, we're going to have a blast for that opening game. USFL podcast, USFL newsroom. We're throwing a flippin' tailgate party. Now, I will say this. If you'd like to volunteer any items, DM us on Twitter. I mean, we're talking like grills, if you have a tent, chairs, tables. I mean, I'm coming from Texas. Zach's coming from Indiana. So it's kind of hard to load some of those things on a plane. But we want to make this a party. So if you're interested in helping out or if you just want to hang out, I mean, I'll tell you this, Zach. Even if we don't get chairs, tables, or tent or any of that stuff, at minimum, we're going to be there hanging out with all you guys. But I would like to at least find a grill so we can cook up some burgers and dogs. And I'll say this first. I got the burgers and dogs and buns and all that. We'll probably throw some beer and refreshments in there. But we hope if you're planning on going to that opening weekend, we want to party with you. And I mean, it's not just us. I mean, we've already seen there's a lot of guys from the newsroom crew heading on down to Birmingham, Alabama, April 16th. We got Jake's coming. I heard James Larson might be coming down. We got, I think some of the podcasts will become, Tron Hawkins from This is the USFL podcast. He'll be there as well. I think I did see the End Zone. If you follow the End Zone on YouTube, he's going to be at least at the event. He said he'd stop by the tailgate. So if he does, sign him up. If he doesn't, we're going to find you. I'm just kidding. Having too much. Call the cops. I'm having too much fun.
I got to take a moment there. Calm down a second. Okay. Anyway, we'll find you, but in a nicer way than he put it.
But I look forward to hanging out with everyone, man.
It looks scarier on camera, by the way. Watch it on YouTube. To me, you just get more of that natural vibe.
So my wife always says to me, she says, "Man, you don't sound mean, but you look mean sometimes." I'm jived up. I mean, my eyes are bugging out.
I am pumped to do this tailgate idea. Again, like the tickets price alone, I think that's what's nice for at least us and like other content creators that are going down. Like that just makes it so much easier for like doing things. As much as I love like the XFL, their prices were still to the point where it's like, if I'm going to go, it's got to be a place that's nearer to where like, because I mean, I still like for me, I'm probably doing a plane ticket. So, $10, that's a drop in the bucket. Now I can focus on other stuff that I wouldn't have thought about having budget with my stuff. Just my personal experience. But I mean, everyone else has different. I mean, I've seen people that are saying we're flying down from Philadelphia. I mean, James from Minnesota. So like he's going to be doing that trip, Jake, St. Louis. So, these are things you think about when you're scheduling these trips. That's nice. That is really nice.
I'm telling you, this April 16th has the potential to be the Woodstock of spring football. I mean, my God. How many people have you seen online? That? I know. We need to get on that. Let's get that Woodstock of spring football. Maybe that's our event. That's our tailgate. Excuse me. Spring stock or so. Wood spring football. Stock. I don't know. We'll figure something out. But I mean, seriously though, I mean, with the XFL, yeah, I saw a lot of people talking about traveling to different games, but I mean, considering they were in different home markets, you saw people, oh, I'm going to the game. Day one, when they announced those tickets, I saw so many people just already setting up the road trip. And that, I mean, that's super cool. We're going to meet, you know how many people we're going to meet at this thing that we've probably spoken to online, whether it's in the comments or follow or whatever, that I probably have no clue what they look like, right? Most of these guys are just behind the avatar, right? So I'm super looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to the game naturally, but I'm looking forward to meeting the community. I mean, this will be our first event as the USFL podcast.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it will.
That's something to look forward to as well. We're going to be trying to talk to a couple guys, see who else is coming. We'll announce maybe some other special guests. But one thing I would love to do, and we'll have to check out the logistics here because I started thinking about it and I think we can figure it out. But I would love to do a live podcast while we're there. Maybe it's live for the crowd and pre-taped for the internet, depending on, I don't know what the Wi-Fi situation looks like or what the, 3 to 5G I don't know. I've never been to Birmingham, Alabama.
In a hotspot,
right?
Yes.
So we're going to find out, but we'll definitely, for the people there, we'll be doing something. So hopefully you guys look forward to that. But again, if you want to help out, if you want to donate, not even your time, if you just want to bring a grill or bring some tables and bring some chairs, DM us. I mean, we'll throw you a free shirt or a hat or something. We'll hook you up. We'll hook you up.
Can we talk about a special guest, by the way?
Oh yeah, no, we gotta.
Yeah,
there's no way we're skipping this.
This is kind of going into the wrap up here. Kind of some tidbits. We got the meat and potatoes down. Let's get the sides and the dressings of this whole deal. I don't know why I'm talking food. I think it's just my normal demeanor. Whatever.
Have you had dinner yet?
To be determined.
There, that's why.
At some point, that's going to happen. Bruno Reagan, who is currently one of the co-hosts for the afternoon stretch over at WNSR in Nashville. For those of you who remember, he's made his personality, made his story with the St. Louis Battlehawks, lineman for them as well. Sounds like he is already signed up. He went into the portal for the USFL. He is in that player portal. He's been giving tidbits on guys he's been getting contacted by. His opinion has changed a lot, as a voice for what he thinks of this league and just, his experience, because he was in the XFL 2.0, which has a pretty good reputation that it had through its 5-week run as a regular season. So a lot of us have been hearing his shows as of late this past week. Things seem to be switching back too. And that's from a guy who is in the know and is a player with the experience in the know. And we might be getting a bit more of that because we're going to talk with him.
It's going to be fun.
We're going to have him as a bonus for this show.
It's going to be so fun. So, I mean, our paths crossed earlier this week for the funniest thing. I mean, again, Zach, I've been doing this site for 4 years. This is the funniest thing that has happened in the 4 years of this website. So
this was good.
We'll go into a lot more detail in the interview, but just to give you a quick recap. So as Zach mentioned, he's the co-host of the afternoon stretch, and he's been talking about the USFL recently. And I believe it was last Friday, so a week from the day that this podcast comes out, he was talking about learning of a contact that he knew in the league. Somebody had reached out, given him a player application. And I mean, he had the funniest quote I've ever heard. And this is a verbatim quote. "I've talked a lot of trash about the USFL, but I'm probably going to play for them." So, I mean, I'm not going to lie. It was a little bit of a slow news day last Sunday. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do a write-up. And I called out that quote. And I mean, I woke up the next day with mentions and all sorts of things going on Twitter because somebody else had found the article, cropped it out, tweeted it out, tagged Bruno in it. He started laughing. They bring it up on their show. And so that basically that's how our paths crossed. I mean, we're getting pings in the newsroom Discord, which, by the way, if you're not joined, link in the description, about Bruno talking about the league. And all of a sudden people are like, "Stefan, I think they're talking about your article." So of course I jump in there, and I mean, it was so funny. It's just so funny that a little website like this can have such an impact. And I will say they were hype about us linking to to the SoundCloud, and I apologize. It's WNSR, not WSNR or whatever I put in there. But I did fix it right away. I fixed it live. I did it Bill O'Reilly style. They were talking about it on the show.
I'm so sorry, Bruno, if you're listening. I'm so
we'll talk about it with them tomorrow. Well, they got my name wrong, so I figure we're equal now. We're even. But no, so look forward to that. So similar like we did last week, or at least Zach with Dave Naylor. That'll probably pop up Sunday, maybe Monday over on the YouTube channel. But if you didn't check out that Dave Naylor conversation, that was a fun conversation about Jim Popp joining the league.
Dave's just a great talk. He is a great conversationalist and great football fan and analyst. No matter what, he might be working at TSN, he might be an insider for CFL, but he knows his stuff. Like, he's just an excellent talent to talk to. The stories that he put in there, if you haven't caught it yet, seriously, like, go check it out. And if you're wondering who the hell Jim Popp is, like, that's a great synopsis of the guy he is from his tenures with the Alouettes and the Toronto Argonauts.
I mean, it's a perfect introduction. I mean, I knew a little bit about Jim Popp, but after listening to that, I said, wow, he is the perfect person for this role, the role he's taken in the USFL, right? Mm-hmm. So definitely, if you haven't checked that interview out, head over to youtube.com/USFL podcast. Click the link, check it out. It's worth it. And like we said, Bruno Reagan, former St. Louis Battlehawk, potential future face of the USFL. We're going to be talking to him. We're going to get the skinny. We're going to talk about the coaches because I'm curious now that all 8 coaches are out, if he has a preference. And I think, I won't spoil it. I think I might know who it is. But so okay. You mentioned earlier, real quick to deviate. So your team is the Michigan Panthers, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's the closest because of geography. That is how I picked it. Even though I live in Indianapolis, I have an uncle who lives in Detroit, so I can connect it via family. I'll do it that way.
So I don't know if I've ever officially announced my team. I think it's probably pretty obvious. Now, again, it was not really down to 2 choices: the Panthers or the Gamblers. Mainly in point. Well, one, the Panthers. I'm originally from Detroit, so I have that connection there, but I live in Houston right now. Now, the way I kind of look at it is the Panthers are my team from the north, the Gamblers are my team to the south. But to make things interesting, we can't root for the same team.
No.
We just can't.
No, we cannot. So plus the matchups. I mean, we're going to be going to each other when this happens.
Oh, absolutely. So right now, today, episode 4, it's official. The ref is pulling for the Houston Gamblers. Kevin Sumlin. Fisher, you're going down. Every one of the coaches is going down. Oh, we're going undefeated, just like the Houston Roughnecks. People are going to say, watch out, buddy. Roll the dice. Here they come. Put your money on the Gamblers. That's all I got to say.
We'll see about that. I got to step on the fandom. I bought a T-shirt just before I got on here because I was waiting for whoever the coach was.
Right.
Finally got the shirt. I was like, you know what? I can get behind my guy. Jeff Fisher, here we go.
I'll say it.
So got that coming in.
I will say this real quick before we get back on topic here. Fan feedback has been pretty positive on the 2 new coaches. Like I said, there's the peanut gallery out there as always. You're always going to get that with the internet. But, I mean, overall, we're seeing positive feedback, so I like to see it. I'm looking forward. We're moving on to the draft now, or player selection meeting to give it the right term.
It's been referenced at both. I mean, you call it either one. It's basically the same thing.
Right. So, I mean, it seems like we have a few details on that front as well, right? So Gene Hallman, he's part of Bruno event team, which is kind of a big part of helping organize the USFL and Birmingham situation. Well, he joined 3-man front on WJOX sometime this week after the announcement in Birmingham. And I mean, this dude dropped some interesting nuggets. So I'm going to skip the first bullet here real quick. We're going to talk about the player selection. Then we're going to jump into the really crazy one, at least the one in my opinion. But so a lot of people wonder, the draft pool or the player selection pool, the portal, whatever you want to call it, how many guys are in there? We've heard rumors in the past. I think I heard 800 people. We heard 8,000, blah, blah, blah. It looks like, at least according to him, as of now, we have about 3,000 players in that pool. And I mean, that's a healthy pool, if you ask me. Now, more interesting, he mentions that there should be about 5 or 6 high-profile players that are, what he says, instantly recognizable on each team. So it's not going to happen, but we've already saw one of the coaches reach out to an Antonio Brown, right? And so
right.
I feel like we are going to get that surprise. There's going to be a guy in here that we're like, oh my God, yeah, that makes perfect sense, right? And I don't know who those guys are going to be. I don't have any inkling of who they're going to be, but I expect at minimum, we're going to probably see some high-profile people from the XFL. We'll probably see some people maybe jump from the CFL. And we're absolutely going to see people that had experience in the NFL. I mean, it's inevitable. We saw it in the spring league. We're going to see it in the USFL. But more importantly, I think he's right. I think we're going to get a couple of those surprise players that at least bring that recognition factor for the league. If somebody's tuning in April 16th or is just flipping through the channels, they see the USFL, and that at least catches their attention to watch the game, and they turn it on and stick with it for a couple minutes. And then they see a guy that they recognize and say, oh, wow, this isn't just like AAA league, right? This is,
sure.
I know these people. Hey, I know Jeff Fisher. Oh, I know Mike Riley maybe, or I know this player. That's only good for the league. And it seems like we're heading down that path.
Yeah. I mean, Bruno even has mentioned at times on the afternoon stretch that, there are guys that are XFL guys that are in this. So that also adds maybe you do see someone that is recognizable from the XFL. And, I have faith in that. That's now is multiple reports that you have at least guys that, if you're a football fan or a diehard in that stretch, that you'll be able to recognize and go, okay, I see what they're playing with. And they're going to announce these rosters, before they go to play. I mean, they're going to get drafted February 22nd, 23rd, and we'll learn about the teams. I mean, they're going to post them on their website. They should.
I would assume they will.
I mean, they're hiring social and media guys right now. That was put out this week too. So that effort's going to ramp up once they get down there. It's been bare bones. We know that, but that's going to come out. You'll recognize. It sounds like you'll recognize folks, and you'll get to look at that list too. And I like it. I at least it sounds like we're getting a positive vibe on the football operations. That has been consistent so far. Football operations, getting at least a thumbs up. I'm not going to give them 2 yet because I haven't gotten more proof and I need assistance and all that. But at least a good thumbs up has been showed for those that have been talking about how this is working with that element. The roster size, okay, that's been one that's like, well, what do you do? 45 is small. 7 of those are practice squad. 38, that's your main squad. The NFL roster is 53. The XFL roster below that 45
or 48. I think it was 45.
I think it's one of the two, and I know it was in the 40 range. So it's a lower one. You'll get about 400 plus players total in the league to start, but at least they have a reference.
Yeah, I mean, it's a starting point. It worked for the spring league. I think it'll work for these guys here.
Absolutely. Let's get the final point though in this. The one that kind of I think was a slight head turner, and I know from what we were clarified was somewhat mentioned back in the summer, but I think just got re-mentioned. Everyone goes, wait a minute, what? They, at some way, shape, or form, Fox execs had mentioned that A-Rod either was or is currently interested in ownership of the Generals. At least in some way, they maybe either they talked to him or like kind of nudged him on the side there, or put him in a spot. The story that Hallman puts down is kind of that's how that played out. Is that they kind of quickly showed and talked to him about it, almost like a social thing in a way.
Right.
But I mean, they want guys that have backing. I mean, the idea is they're going to sell these.
Oh, sure.
At some point, except it'll be like the MLS where they're the central office. You're a franchise in terms of you run the operations, but you report back to the folks who are in the main offices. So they want people that have some decent capital. A-Rod is he's not just a ex-baseball player anymore. Dude is invested in many different avenues of income. The guy has some wealth.
Straight up. And you know what this shows though? And this is again going back to a little bit of the doom and gloom that we see on the internet. This shows that the USFL and Fox and that leadership team is working on all sorts of things in the background that we could have no idea about. I mean, the fact that at least there's a somewhat confirmation that they reached out to A-Rod or A-Rod, they had a discussion. There's right. Confirmation there. That, I mean, again, speculation zone.
Speculation zone. Here we go.
I think this is where we're going. Speculation zone. I mean, what that tells me is that's not the only one they talk to. I mean, it would be silly to, we're going to talk to A-Rod and that's it. We're only talking to one guy. And I wonder, like, if they're talking to people, who the rest of those people are, right? We were talking about this in the pre-show. If I'm looking at the Michigan Panthers, there's one name that everybody in Michigan, especially in that Detroit area, is going to recognize, and that's the Ilitch family. Now, it's a shame that Mike Ilitch isn't around anymore, but I'll tell you, he would have jumped at the opportunity to own a football team. Case in point, if the Lions ever went for sale and Mike Ilitch was still alive, he would have bought them in a second. He wanted to buy the Pistons, too. He would have bought... Mike Ilitch loved the city of Detroit. He put so much... It's a shame that he never won a World Series with the Tigers. When they won in 84, that was under Monahan with the Dominoes. And then they ended up selling to Little Caesars, funny enough. Never got it. He did get plenty of Stanley Cup championships, though. And I'll tell you, the love and care that he put into both those teams. I mean, I remember them both when the Tigers lost, I think, 119 games in a season. The Wings were like just god-awful. And, I mean, he made them both competitive teams. Again, Tigers never won a World Series, but we got plenty of Stanley Cup championships out of the Red Wings. And, I mean, although Mike Ilitch isn't around anymore, the Ilitch family is still, like, they are the kings of Detroit. And if I look at who should own a team in Michigan and what would get the most positive results, I look at something like the Ilitch family. If the Ilitches bought in on a USFL franchise, everybody in Detroit is instantly on board for their name recognition value alone. Now, we did see with the AAF, people joke. I think it was Eminem even joked that he was going to buy a franchise in the AAF.
Yes. That was looking back, that is hilarious to think about.
Right. And
with how that league kind of crashed and burned after its big week one launch. You know, and I football was good. Football was good. Just finances were terrible. But like Charlie Ebersol was the one that was saying, "Hey Eminem, what are you thinking, man?" So hey, I don't know. They won't. I mean, if they're talking A-Rod, you know, and they're talking to. They have to maybe speculation zone. They have to be thinking about other big names. And I'm gonna also put out here too. I don't think A-Rod, if he was connected, if he was, again, it's not confirmed. There's hints that they maybe are tempting him. You know, he wouldn't be the main guy. We're going to be like talking groups, not like, unless you're having someone like the Ilitch family that they can afford all this, you know, A-Rod still would be like, okay, I need like maybe 2 or 3 partners in this, you know, so this could be constructed, and this is still kind of far down the road. Really, I think we'll start hearing more owner stuff, possibly close to like championship time, maybe like playoff time in late June.
If we even get it until then.
It's amazing that this was even brought up for a little bit. So that just makes me go, oh crud, they really are kind of already putting feelers while they're getting a crunch bottom down below 80 days. You know, a lot of stuff is going on behind the scenes that I'm surprised we're getting. And it's funny. These podcasts keep on revealing these nuggets. I find that hilarious. You know, credit to content creators for getting guys that, you know, they're good with sharing the bits. Right. But it's amazing that that's how we're getting a lot of these behind the scenes pieces that aren't official until they're said. It's funny. And
I'd sign them up. Keep doing podcasts, guys, because I want to keep learning these nuggets. Because I mean, every time that it happens, something pretty noteworthy comes out. I mean, since we're in the speculation zone already,
onward we go.
Right. I mean, we got one more speculation zone topic. I mean, we have to talk about it. So last week on the podcast, we were talking about why did we go from 4 coaches to 2?
Oh, yep. Here's the big one.
Right. And at the time, it was Jeff Fisher that was supposed to be on the show. And then he wasn't on the show. And then it only got knocked down to 2. So, I mean, what happened? So to me, it's either he couldn't make it or maybe he wasn't supposed to be the coach and he was supposed to have another role. I'm curious to get your take on this because it is interesting.
That's tough. I don't know. I know that the speculation zone is to say like, well, what do you think?
Right.
Here's my take on it. I think that Fisher all along was supposed to be on this. I think that the Breakers job was the one that you had a back out or you had a contract issue come up last minute. That's my honest opinion.
Mm-hmm.
That is my option one. Option two, and this is just because I'm thinking a media company. Fox said, you know what, we did this media advisory. We're going to bite the bullet. Screw it. Extend it. Right. We got a big week coming up next week. Let's just smack them with more news like within a 3-day span like they did. And that one I think is my secondary, like if I'm a media company trying to be, sneaky and getting extra clicks.
Right.
I think that the Breakers job wasn't locked down because they sounded pretty sure that Fisher was going to be on the show, which if I were to have done it last week, think about it. You do all 4 coaches, you end the show with Jeff Fisher because he's the big, the big cheese, the big fish, I either one, or the big McFish. Is that how it works?
Sign them up.
Both together. So that's how I would have done it in the show's stretch. Announce the coaches. Fisher comes in. He talks for like 15 minutes at the end of the show to end it. USFL's the last thing you think about. And Fisher's the big name that day. I think the Breakers job wasn't locked down or someone pulled back at the last minute. Fedora happened to become available, which is funny because it's not like the Baylor job was really being threatened. He was there and at a consistent place he could have gone last year, especially after a Big 12 championship under that regime. So I think that he was approached, he took it, and they finally locked it down and said, all right, we'll do it on Thursday. Mm-hmm. And that's how this came to be. Because I think they had a grandiose plan to have all 4 with Fisher to end it.
Right.
And something just didn't hitch. That's what I think went down. That's why you saw this awkward stumble into next week where everything then is more news and Fisher still has talked. But we didn't get a Fisher interview,
Which is a bummer. Which is a bummer.
Hear from him.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I think that they were ready and they just couldn't do it because it would look weird, especially if you had to go after the fact and say, well, really, we lost a coach. Like that to me is worse than how you did it from like saying going from 4 to 2. Exactly. That would have been the big buzzkill.
Well, if you would have came out with 3 of the 4 instead of 2 of the 4, I think there would have been more eyes on it saying,
or if you said happened? You had 4 and then had to pull back on one of the 4.
Right.
And then wait. That's even worse.
Right.
That's what I was saying. Like, that's the nuclear scenario in terms of PR because it felt at times last week, like even after we had Kirby Wilson and also, Skip announced that it was almost like nuclear for some people where it was like, oh my God, how could they mess this up?
Right.
And I'm just thinking after the fact, like, yeah, imagine if they did all 4 and then had to say they didn't have all 4. Even worse.
Right.
I guarantee it would have sounded even worse. So that's why my speculation zone, Fedora was the last minute hire. He's the one that was the final piece of this puzzle. Fisher was already ready to go.
You know what? I can't argue with your logic there as much as I want to because I love to have like a counterpoint to everything. I mean, I can't find a flaw in that argument because at minimum, it seems like Jeff Fisher was in. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been booked on the show unless maybe
Todd Haley even mentioned it in a separate podcast that he was already talking with Jeff. So even before this came up.
So
even before it.
So I think you might be on point there, or maybe it was they just wanted to extend the news, right? And maybe because one thing that we have seen is like a tit for tat between the XFL and the USFL, right? We get news from one, news from the other, and they seemingly are not stepping on each other's toes yet. And I assume there's somebody in the background, whether it's agents or things like that, that say, hey, they're probably going to do it this day, so you do it this day. Maybe the USFL thought the XFL was going to start dropping news this week, and then they weren't and said, you know what? Let's drop 2. Let's drop our big Birmingham event announcement, and let's end it off with the last 2 coaches. And then it's like a bing, bang, boom, and then you're rolling right into February where guys are starting to set up for the draft or the player selection. And then we roll into training camps, and then we roll into the season. And, I mean, there's still a lot to learn beyond all that. Like you mentioned earlier, the schedules. There's going to be so much news from here until kickoff. But I'll say this. Other than the minor snafu last week, everything else has been top-notch. The news has been good. The hires have been solid. Everything's been professional. Things have blown me away, like the simulcast and NBC signing on. I'll reiterate this every day until the season starts off. This is Fox's game to lose with the USFL. They're so set up for success, whether it be with the central hub and the cost savings procedures. The coaches are there. The players, I know people might scoff at the low active rosters, but that gets them going right? That gets them past that allows us to see a second championship potentially. I don't want to say it's going to happen for sure.
Haven't gotten our first one. You know, that's even bigger.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's been a while.
It's been a minute.
Right. So
someone doesn't want to see the Stars win again. And I imagine there's some people out there's like, darn Baltimore Stars / Philadelphia Stars, you know. Before we move on, we do have a fan question this week, by the way. We promised we'd do one, and one that I wanted to do last week. So we will get to that in a second. Just wanted to update you. Like, we were talking social impact that the Panthers have had just from Fisher. So they started today with 9.6K followers on Twitter alone. They are up to 12K right now. They've almost gained 3,000 in a span of less than 12 hours. Talk about the impact. That's how much media exposure Fisher brought just to that one team. The USFL's also had quite a jump too in its own following. Like, things are starting to move to where people are recognizing the league now beyond just on some social, and if you get ran by it. Mm-hmm. All right, let's do our fan question of the week. Again, we missed on last week, just busy. We still was jam-packed, but I would feel terrible if we missed a fan question for 2 weeks in a row. So this one comes from Spider Fan on YouTube. He had this question last week, and he actually reposted it on a different clip of ours to kind of reaffirm that we get it. And trust me, we're going to get it. So here's the question. This kind of relays back to some of the style player that the USFL is trying to appeal to. And the question goes, and we haven't really addressed this yet here, what do you guys think of the USFL's 2-year eligibility for high school? And how do you think that affects the quality of play? I actually want to hear your thoughts on this. I definitely think that it's not as big as it seems year one. Mm-hmm. But I'll counter off what you're talking, because I think
we have the same opinion here. I think
it's a buzz point that has been talked about a lot in some circles.
For sure. So I think we're just the way you started. I think we're on the same path here. So year one, I don't think we're going to see a lot of it. Maybe 1 or 2 guys, maybe at most. Right? Realistically, if we're talking about a 3,000 player pool that's already available, they're going to pick some of those guys that are a little bit more established, a little bit more ingrained in the game, maybe have a little bit more experience, whatever. Years 2, 3, I think we're going to see some come in. But it's not, I mean, when it comes down to the quality of play, I don't worry that much. And here's why. I don't think we're going to see, barring we have the LeBron James of quarterbacks that for whatever reason wants to turn down endorsement money in the NCAA to come to the USFL. I don't see it being like the star player. It's going to be some of these guys, probably a lot of special. Why can't I think of the name? What's the kickoff groups and all
special teams?
Special teams. Why can't I don't know. Oh, I had a brain fart there. Sorry,
I'll give you a pass.
But yeah, I think we'll see like a lot of special teams guys, like defensive backs, things like that are really just going in there because maybe they're not going to get the big college and to where it would make sense for them. I mean, they're going to get, at minimum, they're going to be on TV. You're going to get a couple of these guys, get some of that footage on a broadcast television. I think that's how it'll play out, at least for the first probably 2 years. We'll maybe see a couple sprinkled in. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see 0 year one. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, and that's kind of my angle. And I'm thinking, I'm relating this back to how the XFL went down. Just the fact that we even had one go in. You know, I thought that was kind of in its own right insane. That we had of course one player even join up. It's just that the NIL money is really what I think kind of makes or breaks it for at least college. High school, I think that also plays into effect. You know, 5- and 4-star athletes, they're going to go to top schools almost all the time. It's nearly guaranteed Power 5 schools are going to get the cream of the crop, and they're going to offer right now for sure better benefits than the USFL. I'm going to be frank. If you're a 5-star athlete, you know, coming out of some school in say like Texas or California, you know, one of the bigger states that has football, Ohio, I'll even throw in there, you know, you're going to get you're not only going to get that roster spot, but you're pretty much on a fast track, in my opinion, if you're like an all pro type of athlete, to get what would be NIL money. And that right now is a wild, wild west at this moment in college. There's going to be stuff that's changing with that in the next few years in terms of how it's regulated, and you'll be seeing people that'll be testing the boundaries of it. But that's going to play into effect. What I'll be seeing more is I'm looking at G5 schools, FCS schools, guys that are less likely to get that cash, or that they are seeing like, hey, my time here, I'm running out of time and I'm not going to be able to use the transport portal effectively to build my stock. What if I go to a pro level, jump on in with guys that have been possibly already in that pro scene, and then we can reevaluate. Kenny Robinson was drafted 6th round in the NFL. So that's the only basis for this we have ever seen. And that was an XFL player. And even at the time, if you went back to that draft in 2020 or in 2021, it was odd for people to talk about. Like, that was something, some of the analysts for the different stations said it was hard to evaluate because he wasn't in a college program. He took a pro route and did like almost a pseudo college pro-esque type of play, because that's kind of what these leagues are. They're supposed to be that middle ground in terms of level. So we don't have enough exposure. I think that I don't think you see it year 1 because of the crunch time. Year 2, I think you get at least one that trickles in, takes that risk again, along with the XFL. Possibly, maybe you get 2, 1 per each league, because the XFL's hinted that that policy might be staying as well. That's not fully confirmed, but I would be shocked if they didn't keep it up, because it was something that made a news story. And if Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson wants news pieces and television and extra content, that's good content. It's the same TV mindset. So year 2 for the USFL, I think that's when you start looking for G5, FCS guys that say, okay, maybe one takes that risk and jump ship. And if that goes well, that's when the game, I think, starts slowly changing us into seeing like, okay, what do colleges do then?
Right.
But that second year, that's what you need to be watching for. And in terms of play, I'm basing it off, I think it'll be fine because that's the talent they want. I don't think that going directly from high school is an option right now in any near forecast. I think it's still too much of a risk. I mean, hey, Maurice Leggett, when he tried to do something close to it with 1 year at Ohio State, I mean, his career was all over the spot from that, and he was blackballed at Ohio State for that move too. And I think that's a risk. You are playing with fire if you leave out of high school like that. That opens a can of worms for programs.
For sure.
I think college is definitely likely. High school, if you're leaving directly from high school, I don't know if you do that. I don't think that happens anytime in the next 5-10 years. And that's even assuming that the USFL is around. I hope it is. I want it to be. But short term, I don't see that.
I mean, I would love to see it for, at minimum, the 1 or 2 stars that like emerge out of it. The guys that you would have never seen that become like, how did this guy never get?
So you want someone like a Cooper Kupp that goes to a small place,
right?
Gets a big time name, or maybe he takes that chance here, gets big, goes to the NFL,
right?
And that brings exposure back to the USFL.
Exactly right. I would love to see that. I mean, those are diamonds in the roughs, and they're going to be hard to find. But yeah, I don't think we see it anytime soon. But at the end of the day, right? It's a double-edged sword too, because I mean, from the league's perspective, they need to keep people safe. Right, because it's one thing to get a positive news article because this guy's skipping college to join your league. But, I mean, he's also playing against potentially guys that do have NFL experience that may be hundreds of pounds bigger than he is, that there could be an issue there. Again, going back to Berkovici, imagine if he was 2 years out of high school. Right? I mean, that would hurt a little bit more, I think. I think that hit would have hurt a little bit more. Not that it didn't look like it hurt a lot. Man, Berkovici, I feel bad if this dude's watching because this is like the 3rd week in a row out of 4 shows I brought this dude
I was just
up.
thinking that, like, how do we keep circling back to this guy getting jacked up on national television? And this is like now going on almost 3 years ago.
Because it was like the second most memorable moment of the AAF besides them folding. Ooh, that's what I was going to say. Someone playing the risque card. Yeah.
Ooh, look at you.
But you guys know what I'm saying.
My line.
Yeesh. We've been talking a lot. Now this is probably time to run away before the ref starts saying some crazy stuff.
Yeah, we'll call it a wrap.
Been a big week, a good week, maybe the best week ever. We got plenty more weeks to go. Before we go, though, want to circle back. David Cislinski. I think I said your name right. I hope I said your name right, but let us know when you DM us on Twitter to redeem your prize. You're either going to get a hat or a t-shirt from the USFL shop. And we didn't mention this in the beginning, so this is for all the lucky people that stuck around to the end. We got another giveaway going on. Same type of deal. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you hit the bell, as well as follow us over on Twitter. That's how we DM and make the magic happen, as they say. But here's what we're doing. When we get to 500 subs on YouTube, which it shouldn't be hard. We're past 250. We're over 500 on Twitter. We're going to do the hat or the t-shirt, but we're putting a little bit extra on top. And again, maybe not everybody can use this, but we'll re-gift, or you can re-gift. But we're also going to be giving away 2 tickets to that debut game. So that means if you win, not only do you get a hat or a shirt and a set of tickets, but you can also hang out with the ref and my man from the Gridiron Gallery, Zach, at the tailgate party, whatever we call it, spring stock, something. We'll figure out a name. So make sure you subscribe, hit the bell. If the button's not red already, sign you up. You did your job. But go ahead. You have something.
Look out for that. That's what I'm saying. That's going to be a massive giveaway. I want to leave on this, and I'm lucky that we're recording this as we're getting updates and stuff. Thing we're going to be talking about next week, Stefan. You know who just dropped a piece of content? The Gamblers.
Oh, really?
Kevin Sumlin dropped a coach's interview, one-on-one with him.
Oh,
we'll save that conversation for next week. But looks like they're cranking some stuff out.
They're getting those hires in there.
The media machine is beginning to move.
This is what I like to see.
So
there it is.
Go check that out. We're gonna definitely put that on the plate for episode 5, because I imagine if someone's talking, they got to be doing others by now.
Oh yeah, I think we're gonna start seeing these pop out probably every couple days now.
Yeah, we'll be highlighting that. By the way, we'll be highlighting that with our social. Again, follow us: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, USFL Podcast. Those are growing. And if you haven't subscribed at this point, listening or watching this video on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. It builds morale. And for us next time, sign y'all up. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll catch you next week. Episode 5, moving towards more of the season. Got all 8 coaches. Things are clicking at the right moment. Catch you later, guys.
Party on.